Yeah, I mean, the bear market of love. So I started to move, I wanted, like I said, the rural kind of aspects of the work and, not being nostalgic, but using it as an aesthetic was something I really wanted to start moving towards, where the barn, uh, you could get that sense to say, oh, he misses his barn or something, So I was like, well, I'll move away from that a little bit and I'll use those same aesthetics that you might see in a barn, like the hand-hewn beams or like a rougher edge, and work into something a little bit different. And at the time, I was getting really into finance and looking at markets and a lot of the psychology around that, like different economic theories, and that was fueling some of my thoughts. I got out of a kind of a bad breakup of a long relationship and had to move out while I was in grad school. So kind of hit me pretty hard, and I went on like I would say like a self-study into economic theories, markets, and the crypto sphere. And it was like a way to occupy my mind. It was almost like a therapy. And it was very weird stuff that I was never exposed to. So it was pretty open. And I thought, wow, this stuff's really tech, on how like it's really techy, and you got to know some stuff about some things to even understand what's going on. And I was more in awe of like charting and stuff like that. I really didn't know much about it, but it was really interesting to me. And I had never been exposed to it, which is pretty rare. I've seen a lot of stuff, but so then I started thinking, oh, how do I use this kind of like cruder aesthetic in these types of like areas like this, So with the bear market of love, I was rubbing separate pieces of wood because I didn't want to have to always go to a barn either, and I didn't want to always have to resource this barn or go back to Michigan to my farm to get material. I kind of saw that as being a little bit of like a cornering position. So I was sitting in my studio and I was using a hatchet, and I was trying to just use tools that were a little bit more from that area. And I was getting scrap wood from the streets of Philadelphia, going into my studio, breaking it apart with the hatchet to size it down. And then, I'm putting this canvas on the wall where I would slip these pieces of wood behind it and paint over them and then sand those to bring those up. So in Bear Market of Love, you have all these little things that look like a assemblage of a ladder, maybe a floor breaking in. And that's all different pieces of wood that I put behind the canvas and then painted and then rubbed from the front to get this little tears in the canvas and different colors coming through that shouldn't have. And I assembled, I was thinking of these markets that were going through quite a low dip at the time, and everybody was like freaking out, like crazy depressed. And, there was, I was starting to like learn more about Twitter, and there was people like literally down and out, like changing their whole lives, this bear market. And I was just like, this is so crazy. Like, this is wild. I'd never been exposed to this stuff. And I was just watching prices fall and all this people, not good stuff. And, I was, getting out of this relationship, and I thought, wow, I feel like this same thing kind of, it just keeps on crashing and going down and down and down. And I was getting pretty, I was getting deeper into depression, and I was making this work. And I thought of like constructing this ladder to kind of come out of this danger zone a little bit. So like, at the bottom of the piece, you'll see these large eyes that are kind of like these scary eyes that are made with the ASCII computing language. And I started to grab onto that too, these ASCII characters, these ASCII images, ASCII. It's like very primitive. It's like before Photoshop. It's like the very primitive way of making images for programmers and coders. Like Oregon Trail.
When you were like a kid, yeah.
Yeah, like when you saw the banners, the banners that would say this or that. And
yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I kind of remember those things.
Yeah, right? I really latched onto that stuff because I saw that as like the same type of aesthetic that I was looking for in the barn. And it was like almost like the caveman painting of the internet. And so that really like resonated with me, and I saw it as this primitive type of way of image making. I saw the barn as like a primitive art form almost, or this early setup for people's, to create a home and stuff like that. So I just wanted to like kind of make those two clash. And so in Bear Market of Love, you have this kind of like dark zone on the bottom that's kind of supposed to be a little bit frightening, and then this ladder that's going up and kind of getting out of the water. So I kind of thought of this dock up top where I have my white Vans, my white high tops Vans placed on the very top of the painting, a silhouette of them. And I was kind of thinking of like being underwater, you know, and I have ropes going up to kind of, you know, convey this as well as like this, almost like this escape route out of this relationship or the depression that comes from getting out of a relationship, which, you know, ended up starting a series of work that I kind of am finishing up right now that I refer to as the survival kit series, where I was just making all these tools that you would use to survive, you know, out in the wild. So there was like compasses and fire, but I was making them all with this ASCII images, which is a lot of my work is now.
Before we go to the next one, I just want to go over this one because I learned so much. Just I had no idea, one, that you were doing that rubbing again on the canvas for those pieces, and that was just completely eye-opening for me. So there's a lot of texture in these as well.
Yeah. I mean, the paint's actually applied very thick, like that heart. Kind of wanted this like neon, you know, like this. I almost wanted like a, you know, like a shop. If love was like a shop, and it had a stand light on or something, you know, and like it was just kind of chilling there, sideways, halfway, you know. So I did that. That's like very thick impasto paint on there, and then like the rope. I used a buddy's. It was actually a lasso that my buddy had. So I really beaded the paint on there to kind of resemble this rope. And then the pieces of ladder and like the kind of broken wood looking things are very physical. You know, they're flat. There's not wood there or anything, but there's little tears and there's sanding marks and there's color coming through. I think there's patches in that one and stuff like that from behind.
And in this painting, again, you're not using any paintbrushes.
No, I mean, to apply the paint for the pieces of wood, yeah, you know, that would be about it. But that's like slathering paint on just to get it on there somehow, you know. So otherwise, no, it was all like knives or, you know, putty knives and stuff like that, really.
And what about that white line that goes up and down?
That was all a big piece of wood, right? So that was a long piece of wood from behind. I'd paint the front of it with a brush, but just slather the paint on there. And then I would sand it all off, and as much as I could at least. And then I would take black water or whatever the color is in that one. Some of those pieces range. There'll be like purple highlights or pink highlights. So I would take like a thinned out version of like black water or purple water with paint, you know, paint and water mixed together. I would sponge that across there, and what I would do, I'd let it sit just for a little bit so it would soak into all the areas of raw canvas that I left from the sanding. And then I would take water and wipe the thing down real quick, and the color would come off where there was white paint. So that wouldn't let that color stay there. So all the color would seep into all the raw canvas areas.
I am completely blown away right now.
I want to pull the image up as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at it as you're.
So that's how most of those are done. That tall, long, vertical one is 2 lines that I painted with my finger going down, actually, and that's just raw canvas right there. But every other thing on there is a piece of wood that I like how I just explained it.
Well, there's a section that's like the pink that's kind of like meeting. That looks like it's very like it's like a push and pull of the paint.
Yeah, that was a wash. So, you know, that could even have been a pour. I was kind of slapping that pink around on there to get, if you look at like the dark piece of wood that's like a little bit fatter on there, a lot of those have like a pink glow to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of just like splashing it on there where I thought things were going to go. And then that would come up there later. So yeah, I try to work on these pretty intuitively and kind of be a little bit more expressive with them. And that one was a little bit more of a breakout piece because I was really just kind of like assembling it as I went and kind of building this escape route from the depths, which I like really kind of, it was like almost like a performance as I was making it.
You just breathed a whole new life into this work for me. Now I'm like,
I really enjoyed that piece actually. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, oftentimes like when I'm looking at it, I'll look at it like compositionally and the colors and then I'm automatically drawn to it, you know, but then listening to you explain that part of the wood and the rope, it's like, I had no idea. I feel so ignorant right now. I should have known this.
Well, there's always a lot in my pieces that that's what's nice to talk about them sometimes too. Cause I mean, there's always a lot going on in them, even conceptually and, often physically. So, it is like a lot. Sometimes I'm always worried that, it doesn't come off as well.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to talk about it and kind of explain some of that.
Wow, that's great.